know about you, but it sounds like Kentucky is ready for a new governor. Mackenzie and I stand before you this evening, humbled. Humbled by your support, humbled by your trust, and humbled by the outcome. And so it is in that spirit I find myself saying for the first time tonight that I am honored to be the Republican nominee for governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
All right, Daniel Cameron, the official nominee for the Republican nominee for the governor of Kentucky, and it was a hard-fought primary. We had a lot of very solid candidates, but he won the primary, and I think it was his to lose. And so tonight's show, we're going to talk about the primary and what this looks like, what the race looks like going forward. And we have some great guests tonight to discuss that. First will be Lee Watts. So Lee, thanks for coming on the station.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So there we go. So the primary's done. Daniel Cameron's the winner. And, like I said, it was his to lose. He has the name recognition. He has the track record of being a very solid attorney general in this state. And I think he's hitting all the right notes as a candidate right now, even though he was McConnell's guy, quote unquote. I think that didn't turn folks off who were starting to sour against the GOP establishment. I think he had the Trump nomination, that helped in that way. So, but anyway, there we go. I'm pleased with it. I think he's going to be a great candidate for this race. But eager to get your thoughts, and so what do you think?
Well, I think I have to agree with you. It was Cameron's race to lose, and he didn't make any mistakes. And so he was definitely the one out front. I think overall he will have the best chance in beating Beshear of the other candidates. So the Republicans chose widely in that point. I don't know about necessarily the McConnell factor, seeing as how Quarles has a lot of ties to McConnell as well, and he came in second. So I don't know if that was as key of a factor. The doubt was the Trump endorsement was a big issue. Kraft got some key endorsements, but I think they came way too late to actually play a role into it. So the big question is Cameron going to be able to beat Beshear in November? I think that he will.
I think he can. Yeah, because I think many people said Beshear is the accidental governor, because I think if it wasn't for a few unique circumstances during that last campaign, he probably wouldn't have won. And so I think if we can just get a strong candidate in a red state like Kentucky, I think we have a very strong chance of winning that seat.
And figure Kentucky just this last year switched from blue to red, and it's the first time in Kentucky's history where we now have more Republicans registered to vote than we do Democrats. And Andy Beshear supposedly won by only 5,000 votes last time. And since he became governor, more than 125,000 Kentuckians have left his party and joined the Republicans. So that does not bode well for Andy. Plus, in his own primary, he only got 91%, which is, of course, huge. But that means that 9% of Democrats would vote for anybody else other than Andy Beshear. So things are not stacking up well for Andy to be reelected.
It's not. But he has great approval ratings, and he did have the Andy hour every day for 2 years during COVID, and so it was like an infomercial, free infomercial on every news channel in town. It really created a brand for him that was, I'm the thoughtful, concerned leader who wants to help the state fight this COVID emergency, and so to a lot of folks who are moved by those sort of gestures, they still think highly of him. So I mean, is it gonna? Do you think it's gonna be an easy race for Cameron, or would it be?
No, it will definitely not be an easy race. Again, you cannot underestimate the value of that hour-long propaganda hour that he got from the media for 2 years for free. You could never buy that kind of TV or advertising time on radio, and that's their guy. It's the mainstream establishment Biden candidate. That's who they want, so they give it to him for free. And he did create this kind of strange cult of Andy Beshear. However, I think Cameron, like you said, is hitting all of the right notes. And I think that's very important. I think one of the things we could look at to show that is how much money did he actually spend to win the nomination?
Yeah.
When we look at the top three candidates, Kelly Craft spent about $12 million in her race, which means if you actually got about 17%. So she spent about $350 per vote. However, when you contrast that to Cameron, who won, he only spent $6.92 per vote. So that is a huge, massive difference. He has the name recognition. He's smart. He's well-spoken. He's young, and that's a great factor as well. So I think combining all of those things, he's got the momentum behind him, and I think it is, once again, his race to lose, and I think he's too smart to make a mistake.
I totally agree, and he has a great story. I mean, he's a Kentuckian, born in Elizabethtown. His family, I think, ran a coffee shop there in the city for years, and come up through the political world and with a great reputation, and also his heritage, his ethnic background, his heritage. He's African American, and that's a great thing for this country to have leaders that are African American that are in the Republican Party, and so I think that's going to just help him win this race. And honestly, I think there's a lot of African Americans or blacks, whatever you want to use, whatever term you want to use now. I think African Americans now coming out of style a lot on both sides of the fence, and so a lot of blacks in this state that would be inclined to vote for Cameron, but just for no other reason.
Yeah, that's very true. I think it worked to his advantage at this time. And remember, it was the Republican Party of Kentucky who elected the first black person in statewide elective office, which was the former Lieutenant Governor Janine Hampton. And if they are to do it again, then that means that the Republicans will be the first party to put a black person into the governor's office as well. Right. Just showing that the rhetoric that they're a bunch of racists is not founded on truth whatsoever, and it's the party of Lincoln. Right. And I think that's often been forgotten. Right. So it's going to be, I think, a key factor in this race will be who does he pick up for his lieutenant governor? Have you got any guesses on that?
I couldn't imagine. I doubt it's going to be Kelly Craft, but I think it could be one of the other candidates.
Too much negative.
Love to hear your thoughts on that. Who do you think he could pick, and who should he pick?
Well, I have to agree with you. Craft went negative, and I think any chance that she had, she shot herself in the foot. So I think he's got two different people that groups he might look for. First of all, he might choose someone from the state legislature who has statewide aspirations, but a more likely person probably would be the person who came in second, which would be Mr. Ryan Quarles. He got 22% of the vote. Ryan played nice during the entire campaign, didn't run any negative ads against Mr. Cameron, and he was kind of, I think, hedging his bets, and that might turn out very well for him. So I think he is the most likely candidate. But we might be surprised.
Yeah, the candidate, the mayor of Somerset, I forgot his name. It's Keck. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Great candidate. I really liked him as well, and he might be a good candidate. He covers the southeastern part of the state.
He really does, but I don't think Mr. Keck was actually running for governor, in my opinion. No, he entered the race way too late with way too little money and way too little name recognition. It is my impression that Mr. Keck actually ran this race because he wants to become the next congressman in his district or replace Hal Rogers. Hal Rogers is the oldest person in the House of Representatives in Congress right now. He is known as the Dean of the House by having that age. And so he is expected to retire and not run for re-election. Mr. Keck is in his district, so I firmly believe that this race was not for him to have aspirations of actually winning the governor position at all, was to get his name out there because he wants to be a congressman.
That's why we have you on this show. That's a great insight that I would have never picked up on. So that's
well,
probably
we'll see if it turns out true or not.
Yeah, well, that's very insightful. Well, good deal. So, turnout, was it a pretty good turnout for the primary?
No. Not at all. I mean, more people turn out to go to a ball game, really. There was approximately 14% voter turnout. And that's why we often lose some of our best candidates in the primary, and I think that's what happened again this year with some of the other races, is that we lose our best candidates in the primary because of low voter turnout. So consider this. We had 14% turnout, and Mr. Cameron won with 48% of the 14%. So if you do all the math, that means only about 6% of Kentucky Republicans actually voted for this guy, which is not a good factor at all. We've got to increase the voters in the primaries to get the better candidate.
Yeah, we really do. Wow, that's really, so there's only 6% of Kentuckians voted for the mayor. I mean, the mayor, the governor, future, our candidate for governor. And so, wow, that's a really low number. Okay, well, all right. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. You're watching the station. Welcome back to the station. We're talking about the governor's primary. Daniel Cameron won the Republican nomination to be governor. And so we have Lee Watts on with us now, and one of the state's foremost political analysts. And we're going to discuss this race. So Daniel Cameron, he has to choose a lieutenant governor. And so who could he pick, Lee? I mean, what are some of the better options?
Again, he could pick one of his opponents in the primary. Again, we had mentioned his most likely person would be Mr. Ryan Quarles. So that's who I guess he would. But it's more important on what's going to happen after the election with the lieutenant governor. Because when Daniel Cameron was attorney general, he had very much given the impression that he was going to run for attorney general and stay there for 2 terms. But then he skipped out of that and decided he wanted to run for governor. Now, during a KET debate 2 weeks ago, the moderator specifically asked him if he would stay as governor or if he would try to replace Mitch McConnell as senator, because it is widely rumored up at the Capitol that if we get a Republican, which now would be Daniel Cameron, to become governor, that Mitch McConnell will resign. Now, under a new Kentucky law, if a senator resigns, then whoever is the governor gets to appoint the replacement senator. And that will be between 3 people that the party leadership selects. And since it's a Republican in power, it'd be Republican Party leadership. And it's widely rumored that Daniel Cameron would be one of those 3 people. So he could literally be nominated to be senator, resign, have his lieutenant governor nominate him to be senator, then he becomes senator. And then whoever his lieutenant is, who nobody voted for to be governor, would be governor of the state. And that person then could appoint the new lieutenant governor. And I think that person will either be a member of the state legislature or the current Secretary of State, Michael Adams.
Wow. That's what an interesting chain of events. Okay, so this could be just a stepping stone to be a senator for Cameron. And so really who he picks as a lieutenant governor is going to be a very crucial pick, because that could functionally be our governor at that point, because the first day first time he swears in, that McConnell could say, I want to retire, and then that starts the whole process. How long would that process take to announce?
It technically could happen within 24 hours. I would doubt that, to make it look like it was more organic. I imagine it probably wouldn't happen for about 6 months. Because figure he'd win the election in November, but doesn't take office till January. So I would put it 3 or 4 months after that.
Fascinating. Well, all right. So Quarles.
And if Andy Beshear, Lord forbid, should get reelected, I think we'll also get a new lieutenant governor. I don't think he will keep our current lieutenant governor, Ms. Coleman. If you put a gun to the head of most Kentuckians, they couldn't tell you who our lieutenant governor is today. She's hidden away on purpose because she is just a gaffe machine, one after another. So it is most likely, if, Lord forbid, Andy Beshear does win re-election, that his lieutenant governor within 6 months will decide to resign for family reasons, because she has some new young children at home. And his replacement would probably be the guy right now who is the chief advisor to Governor Beshear. And he'll probably become, his name is Rocky Atkins. And if I had to place a bet, I'd say he would be the Democrats' next candidate for governor after this race.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. So we sort of handicapped the race a bit earlier in the show, but I do feel like there's a very solid chance that Cameron can pull this out. But what are others saying around the country and in the state about this? Who are there any polls yet that are covering the race that we could look at? Or
I've not seen any polls placing Cameron against Andy. I think it's too early to do that. I think it'd be unwise to do that this quick anyway. People have primary fatigue, so I wouldn't expect any polling to be done until at least late summer. And if it's done before that, I wouldn't give it too much credence anyway.
Very good. Okay. Well, we'll just have to see how this plays out. So the next thing to look for is the lieutenant governor pick, and so of course we have the election in the fall in November, and should be an interesting race. Hopefully it doesn't get too negative, but there's a lot to go after Bashir about. The way he behaved during the COVID is just I think unacceptable, and it needs to be called out. And Cameron's done a good job of doing that, and I hope he uses that as a campaign talking point. Another topic that I'd love to see, and this is just a personal interest of mine, is because I'm based out of Louisville. We live in Louisville. The station that this airs on that is in Louisville. And I'm really curious to see if we can get more state attention given to how our cities are ran. And, there's talk in other states around especially red states, trying to roll back some of the powers of Democrat city governments, and to put a curb on some of their excesses and just wrong-headed policies. And so I'd love to see what Cameron has to say about that. And I brought that up to a few of the candidates last week, Quarles and some of the others, and they had I don't think they really studied the issue and thought about it. And then one of the other candidates said, well, Louisville gets enough attention anyway. The rest of the state is always getting ignored, so why focus on Louisville? Well, my response to that is Louisville and Lexington and Bowling Green are the economic engines of the state, and if they're going off the rails, as a state, we need to step in. So I'd love to see that happen. Has there been any talk about that maybe I've missed?
I saw in one of the debates there was something, and I forget whether it was Quarles or Cameron, but it was one of the two, had talked about wanting to put a new state police post over in the Jefferson County, Louisville area. Because they said, listen, the city police controlled by the Democratic governor are being told to stand down so many times, and we've seen the BLN movement just literally was burning Louisville to the ground, threatened to do more. There's still some areas that it's not safe to go down. So if we had an outside force such as the state police, it's not like they're going in there to take over. We have state police posts all over the state, but not there. They are there to augment and to help. And Louisville definitely needs more help in fighting crime. And so I think that would be a wonderful way to maybe get away from some of the liberal leadership and control of some of these cities, is putting it under control, because the commandant is appointed by the governor. And so really you would have an opportunity to have a more conservative person have influence in protecting Kentuckians in our largest cities.
That's right. And I think people from both sides of the aisle that live here in this city would appreciate, better policing, and just because we're living through just a real dramatic downturn in the public safety in our city, and it just needs to be addressed. And if the local Democrat governors cannot or government mayors or city councilmen cannot deal with this, then we need our state leaders to come in, because the state law trumps city law, and so let's go there.
On this particular issue, when Andy Bashir was asked about it, he was highly opposed to this idea. So that can be, again, one of the key voting issues where he may be, Daniel Cameron may be able to draw in more Louisville voters who traditionally vote Democrat. They may be tired of their city not being secure, and this type of issue may actually earn him some of what would be traditionally Democratic votes going to Cameron instead.
Yeah, Lord, from your mouth to God's ears. Let's hope that happens. So, Lee, what are some of the other key issues that this race will be decided on? Obviously, in our big cities, it's safety but there's a lot of cultural hot button issues as well. There's economic issues. Well, what are some of the key issues that this race will be decided on?
Well, I think one of them right now is going to be their support or opposition to the national level candidates, Biden and whoever the Republicans wind up picking. And again, we see that Mr. Cameron was endorsed by Trump. He made a big deal out of that. I don't think there's any way for him, Mr. Cameron, to support anybody else but Trump in his candidacy for president, based on him writing his endorsement to a victory. So the closer they can tie themselves to the national issues, the better that will be for Cameron, and the worse that will be for Beshear, especially with the border issue here recently. We're seeing where Biden is just having tens of thousands cross the border as quickly as they can. There's been several calls for governors, such as Governor Abbott from Texas, to just deploy the state National Guard. I mean, the National Guard works for the state and is employees of the state unless it is during a time of war. And only then does it fall under the Department of Defense and a national control. Something I learned when I was in the military. So I think that because of this literal invasion into his state and into our nation, that Governor Abbott would be under his correct power to deploy the National Guard to secure the border. And if he were to do that, I bet we'd see Governor DeSantis of Florida, Governor Nome from South Dakota, and a few other states would say, you know what, we're going to send you some National Guard troops as well. And if Cameron got in office, I think he would be well advised to do the same thing. I hope he actually brings up the border issue as one of the huge issues in our state for this election. And of course, life and gun rights are always some of the issues. And these two candidates are diametrically opposed on all of that.
You know, there's different styles of Republican governors in this country, and you on one hand you have a DeSantis, a fighter, a populist, someone that's ready to be creative in his approach, and then on others you have the Abbotts, who are a little bit more restrained, but he will eventually be moved to do important things like protecting the border, and then you have some others, Kasich up in Ohio, just more of a rhino style. What do you think? Where on that scale would you see Cameron as a governor?
He's better than Kasich. He's not quite DeSantis. He'll be in between. We'll have to wait till he's in office to see which one. When we look at the popularity and the public support of these two different candidates, or not candidates, those two are actually governors, we see the nation's eyes are overwhelmingly on Mr. DeSantis, not on Kasich's style. So the country is looking for someone that is in the heritage and legacy of Reagan, leading from the right, not running to the middle. And he'd be well advised to do that. Now, with this in mind, he was raised politically on the knee of Mitch McConnell, who is very much don't do anything until you're absolutely forced to do it. So I think he bucked him in running for governor. I don't think Mitch wanted him to do that. So he broke from him a little bit there. So I'll be voting for Mr. Cameron for certain in this election, and we'll be looking forward to him fulfilling all of our hopes. We'll see what he does. Hopefully we can help encourage him to the right.
Oh, well said. Well said. Well, this is great. Lee, thank you for giving us some time today, and your insights on all things politics in Kentucky are amazing, and we really do appreciate it. And if you haven't seen Lee's programming on YouTube, Patriot Point, you should go check it out. It's some of the best commentary and thinking on U.S. politics and state politics out there. So Lee Watts, Patriot Point. Lee, thanks so much, and you're watching the station.
Thank you.